tried to locate their genealogical records, but they weren't found. Therefore, they were considered defiled. They were not allowed to serve as priests. So, thus, try as they might, many who claimed to be priests and Levites, and may well have been, they had lost their genealogical records and they were disqualified. But it seems that there's a level of hypocrisy going on here, since the religion the Jews had been practicing for the last many decades in Babylon and then Persia was completely corrupted with paganism and some new man-made traditions. They weren't following the Torah. Then all of a sudden, precise genealogy matters? Yes, it does. Because the goal was now to turn from their sin, to disavow those pagan influences, to pay attention to God's laws and rules regarding who could serve him at the temple that would soon be reconstructed. So the context for the lists of Nehemiah 11 and then 12 is that the editor wanted to demonstrate that the proper and authorized families and clans of Levites and priests had been identified. They'd been properly vetted, and in view of the spiritual importance of their privileged positions, they were acting in strict accordance with the law of Moses. In fact, the determination to do this correctly even led to an infamous event that we read about back in Ezra chapter 10. In Ezra chapter 10, starting at verse 1, we read this. While Ezra was praying and making confession, weeping and prostrated before the house of God, a huge crowd of Israel's men, women, and children gathered around him, and the people were weeping bitterly. Shechaniah, the son of Yechiel, one of the descendants of Elam, spoke up and said to Ezra, "We have acted treacherously towards our God by marrying foreign women from the peoples of the land. But in spite of this, there is still hope for Israel. We should make a covenant with our God to send away all these wives, along with their children, in obedience to the advice of Adonai and of those who tremble at the commandments of our God. Let us act in accordance with the Torah. Stand up and do your duty, for we're with you. Take courage and do it." So Ezra stood up and he made the chief priests, the Levites, and all Israel swear that they would act according to what had been said, and they took the oath. So even the priests and the Levites, the leaders of the religious sphere of Israel, had taken pagan wives and had children with them. That means that had those marriages and the resulting children been accepted as legitimate, and up to now they'd been seen as normal and good unions, the sons would have become in line to be the next generation of priests and Levite temple workers. So the decision was made among the Jews to dissolve the marriages and to send away the women and their children who were the product of those unions. Again, this was largely to assure that the continuing line of priests and Levites that by God's commandment had to come from the various clans of the tribe of Levi were pure-blooded enough to legitimately serve in the temple. This was not racial bigotry. It was not even political. It was making right a wrong that many Jews had committed, and many priests and Levites had done right along with them. The result was horrific, it was painful, and it was patently unfair to those women and those children especially. But this wasn't God's fault. It's what you find at the end of a long road of sin, pain and calamity. And if one wants to begin to undo all the wrongs committed before God, there will be suffering and often collateral damage to generally innocent parties. That is the high price of sin and then sincere repentance. So since Nehemiah 12 is bringing us now near to the end of the book of Nehemiah, and